Season 2, episode 16 couldn't get any better, not just because you have a new host today, because you have an absolutely terrific guest waiting behind the scenes. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to 7 Minutes of Better Selling Podcast. I'm your new host of the day, and I am really excited for this episode because some of you who may know and who are following this podcast is that once in a while we go back and do some flashbacks on some of the recent episodes. So this one is going to be the last 3 episodes. We usually do it with last 4 episodes, but since it's summer and it's been a while, we have not done a podcast. We thought it makes sense to chime in and connect with you all. And I'm not going to take any more time and welcome the dashing, the handsome, and very talented guest for this show today is Colin Lake. Hi, Colin. Welcome to your own podcast.
Yes, man. I love these, Simon, in particular with our, like you say, we've had some time here, but we've had some real good, strong conversation on the last three shows we'll talk about today, but the last 4 or 5 shows have been just amazing.
Yeah, I love with all this freedom that we have got with this podcast. And I also remember behind the scenes, we were talking about this is the episode number 46, which is great. That reminds me that in the episode number 14, right, we had Scott Crossin, who is the CMO and brand strategist and storyteller. He had some great things to talk about the storytelling and also what do you recall from that episode?
Yes, thanks for that. And so, if you'll remember, Scott Crossan and I have known each other for 30 years. He's a really good friend. He had a level or a series of increasing levels of roles at QVC, where he helped companies when they come in to bring their products to QVC. He would help them identify their true brand. And so we talked about in episode 14 of season 2, what he said was, I teach them how to be intentional with their actions. And so I said, how the heck do you be intentional with your actions? He said, well, first thing I do is I have them sit down and I write down who they best serve and the problem they're looking to solve. And then he said, I then, identify with them those actions that they need to take in order to solve those problems. And so one of the things he and I talked, so that's a really core chunk of thought there. I hope the listeners are saying aha, that works for me to get me down the path of identifying my true brand, like who I truly am and what I individually or uniquely bring to this world. But the discussion led to this thought that the only unique thing about your product, your company, your service, etc., is you. You're the only unique thing. Everyone has something that looks just like it, or at least they're out there trying to convince people it looks just like yours or it's better than yours. And so what we have to do is get the story about us and our unique capability of helping this product, whatever the product is that we bring to the world, and how we uniquely bring it to you that helps you solve the problems you're looking to solve. And of course, that is the essence of sales. So that was episode 14 of season 2 with Scott Crossan, who's an excellent guest and the first 2-time guest that we've had since the show started.
Wow, that was a lovely recap to take away. As you said, teach them to be intentional with their action. I think that is one thing everyone should remember from this podcast. Moving next, we had Megan, who is a CEO at Elite Meat. You had a pretty long conversation in that episode, I remember, right? So what is the best thing you like about that podcast?
Well, if you remember, Simon, that she was having technical difficulties. There was like a 4-minute break in there where we were trying to get everything together. But Elite Meat takes people who have served in the military, in the special forces in the military, and helps them transition into their professional lives, whether it's starting a company themselves or starting to work for a company or looking to grow with the company. And so I really like what Elite Meat is doing. And Megan is the CEO of the business. They've been around for close to 20 years. And she's been running the business for about, say, 6 or 8 of those and has done it very, very well. And so the core thing that she said is we help people identify their authentic self and then the steps to take in order to continue to work towards magnifying that authentic self, because once you identify your authentic self, then if you figure out like how to like magnify that, that's you. This is like an elite or a special forces type thing. That's you performing at your highest level. Um, their quote, or their like one of their philosophies that they operate under, is we have to learn how to be our best self, not the self that someone else expects of us. We have to figure out what our best self is, get some people to help us like identify what that truly is, people you trust. And then that's what we need to work toward, not toward what someone else thinks like, oh, you should be this, you should be that. You identify it, make sure people confirm that that is in fact you performing at your best. And that's what you'll work towards. So I thought Megan was a great conversation, and love what her company's doing and what it does for so many people who've served our country.
No, I also absolutely love that podcast. And you can find all these podcasts at developingthenextleaders.com/podcast. And yeah, she's involved in some good noble cause. So kudos to her, which brings us to the latest podcast that we did with Jason, right? He's a certified wellness coach, something that you may also like because, Colin, you look very fit and fine. So what's up with that podcast?
Well, Jason, how I know Jason is 25 years ago when I first started doing triathlons. Actually, probably 30 years ago when I started doing them. I spent 5 years coaching myself and training myself. And, I was performing well and, coming in some like high places and things like that. But I'm like, I want to win triathlons. Like I want to get every bit of juice out of this orange that I can. I want to squeeze as hard as I can and see what I'm actually capable of. So I hired Jason Gutman. He did amazing things helping me get my training right, get my fitness right, get my rest right, so that like my training can, perform at its highest level. And so that's how I know Jason. He's a Mayo certified clinic. So that Mayo Institute is like, they understand what wellness is all about and getting people to improve their longevity. And so I think a lot of Jason, he's done this for a long time. He's done it at a high level for a long time with some amazing athletes and executives. Okay, so here's what Jason said. As soon as someone establishes a why, their why, like what actually is going to drive them to do something, he said, then we can help them. This is much like what Scott Crossan said, establish small steps in order to get to that why. And then we try and, accomplish one at a time. And so he said, once you've like done this, so step one is identify your why. And for me, for my example, if you remember the conversation, Simon, what I said is I want to win a triathlon. Mm-hmm. And so everything he asked me to do in order to get there was reasonable, because that's why I had a goal. That was my why. I established that why. He established the small steps in order to help me get there. And then what he said was get some accountability buddies, get some people who will really hold you accountable to doing the work to get to your why and to get to what you want. And he said, it's better to have like 2 or 3 people who will hold you accountable. It's even better to have 5 or 6. If you have 5 or 6, it's better to get 7 or 8, like to get more and more people who are pushing you, nudging you to achieve your why, because a why is what ultimately drives humans to perform at their highest level and ultimately sell like at their highest level. So 3 great conversations. And Jason, I thought, did a great job of recapping this little pod of our podcast series, or series 2, or season 2, I should say, season 2. These 3 episodes are really, really robust.
Yeah, I loved the one that you just wrapped up, right? That was pretty neat. And I love all your podcasts, to be honest, right? And having said that, we're only at 9:30 minutes. Colin, any final words before we wrap up this podcast?
I look forward to our next 54 till we get to that 100. And Simon, you keep performing at your highest level and make these shows continue to do what they do for others and helping them sell at their highest level.
All right, Colin, thank you so much for wrapping up the last 3 podcasts, and thank you so much for time today. And as we always say, good selling, everyone.